Hi everyone and welcome. Thanks for coming to the session. There's still plenty of seats up front, so come on down. This session is Teams Applications, the Art of the Possible. My name is Bob German and I'm a partner technical architect at Microsoft, where I've been working with a lot of US partners lately to build Teams applications. My background is mostly SharePoint development, and before that other kinds of development. I found that Teams applications are really fun to build, and I'd like to show you what you can do. But first I actually have to finish something up. I was working on a little consulting project just before. So I just want to make sure I bill my hours. Now this is a Teams bot, and I'm just going to use the microphone and the text-to-speech that's built into my phone. But the bot is going to understand my natural language request here. Today I worked 3 hours on the fourth coffee project. So nothing like a natural language interface to just work really easily while I'm moving around. All right, so let's get started. So Teams applications really are about streamlining teamwork and working with applications. And there's a few different ways you can look at it. One is to automate collaborative processes. So any company, any enterprise, any organization is going to have some collaborative processes that have approvals, handoffs, some kind of a process, maybe notifications when something happens that a team of people have to pay attention to. And if you notify everybody individually, then that sort of leaves the coordination of dealing with the event up in the air. Nobody knows if anyone picked it up or who dealt with it. If it happens in Teams, it's very easy to just start collaborating on it. It also is important to collaborate in context. So suppose you're working with a customer in CRM system, or a product in an ERP system, or maybe you're working on a service incident. Having to switch between collaboration apps and these different line of business apps is not only disruptive by switching the application, but when you actually make the switch, you have to go and find your context again. So you have to go look up that customer, or you have to go find the email thread that was talking about that customer when you switch between, say, a CRM system and an email system. The nice thing about Teams is it gives you a structure that you can keep in context so that you can collaborate with your team in the context of the business data, removing not only the app switching, but the context switching that's involved with that. It also can give a team everything that they need in one place. Now, I'll show an example of what I call a 360-degree view of working in Teams, but this also sometimes can take the form of working in, for instance, first-line worker scenarios where people really need one UI for everything, whether it's a tool or training or setting up their shifts, setting up, checking out information on the intranet. So putting all that into Teams gives people an opportunity to collaborate with their teammates while also having kind of one-stop shopping to get the rest of their work done. Now, as my bot example showed, this also gives an opportunity to reach users on any device, smartphone, tablet, PC, Mac, Linux, browser. Teams runs in all those places, and your app can too. I'm showing right here the Shifts application. It's a built-in one, but you could build. It kind of gives you an idea of the type of thing you could build. This is really for first-line workers to go in and check out their shifts, swap shifts, sign up for time. We're also introducing SMS sign-in for first-line workers, so it makes it really powerful for first-line worker to try to start giving them some of the advantages that information workers have had over the years with this kind of a tool. So there's two big ways to integrate your application with Teams. One is that you can build a Teams application that appears right inside the Teams UI. And another is you can build an application outside of Teams that reaches in using the Microsoft Graph to do things like create channels in Teams or access the conversations, user presence, things like that. Today, I'm really just going to focus on the first one, which is Teams apps. that appear in the Teams UI. Now, Graph API is still there under the covers, but this is a little bit more of an integrated and rich experience, so that's where I want to focus. You can build tabs, and we'll see all this, bots, so chat bots of various types to work with users in that conversational mode. Something called messaging extensions that allows the users to actually look up business data and insert it into the UI or to act on messages. Connectors that notify people of things. These can use adaptive cards, and you also can have an activity feed, which is that notification up at the top left by default of Teams that lets you know something requires your attention. Your app can do that too. So a lot of options. Something to kind of point out about this is that Teams applications work in different scopes. So an app can run in the scope of a Microsoft Teams channel. It can be in a personal scope, kind of one-on-one like that bot I just showed, or somewhere in between, a group conversation. Your app might be just in a small group of people who are chatting. So just want to kind of keep that in mind as I get into some of these examples. So let's start by looking at some tabs, and I'm going to show a few different types. One is tabs based on SharePoint pages. Another is Power Apps, and another is single page applications. Now, in some cases, I'll actually show you how to build the thing as well as what's possible. So in the case of SharePoint pages, it's pretty straightforward, and I will go ahead and show you that. So I'm going to start off in Teams, and you'll notice that I have this Get Started app up in the upper left corner of Teams, and this is actually a custom app that is based on Microsoft Learning Pathways. So Learning Pathways is this amazing site that you can set up in your tenant for free. You just kind of go in and install it, and all this training content is there. But what I'm showing here is how to take that content and bring it into Teams so that users can get started right here inside of Microsoft Teams. Now, another example of this kind of thing is Microsoft Shifts, which I showed a screenshot on the phone. Here it is running in the desktop client. And so again, that's something you might want to pin to the left rail. That's a built-in app though. Let me go into a Teams channel and show a couple more examples. So here is, this used to be a team site, and now it's a team. So actually everything is right here. I still have my home page. My team still wants to know what's going on and have some place that they can refer to information. So I've gone ahead and made the home page into a tab inside of my site. Now, this is, we're missing navigation and some things. I'll talk about that more in a minute, but it's still a great technique to kind of get people engaged. Hey, here is a site inspection app. This is a Power App. So Power Apps now includes the ability to publish the Power App right into Teams as an application. And this is the way that it would show up, is inside of a tab in your team, in a particular Teams channel. Then let me show one more example, which is a single page app. This is a SharePoint framework web part, but it could be any single page app. And notice that when I click into one of these appointments, so what it's actually doing is it's gone and looked at our calendars, pulled in all of our appointments with different customers, and then now we can actually see what everybody on the team is doing and drill in and get all this information. This is just all based on SharePoint Framework and the Graph API, Bing Maps, Open Weather Map, just common cloud services. Now, I want to show deep linking here. So suppose Katie needs a little bit of help with this particular appointment. So this button is going to use the Graph API to send a message with a deep link into the Teams conversation. So the point here is that you can deep link right into your tab, right into your application. So this link not only works right here, but it would work anywhere and bring me into the team, into the right channel, into the right tab, and then into the right information inside of that tab that I'm intended to look at. So just a few examples of some tabs. Now, let me show you a little bit about how to do the SharePoint tabs. I'm just going to go and point out that this is just a SharePoint site, this Learning Pathways. So let me pop back into Teams, and I'm going to go to an application called App Studio, and that's going to allow me to create something called a Teams app manifest. So Teams apps don't really run in Teams. The tabs are actually web pages that run somewhere else. The bots are web services that run somewhere else, etc. So what I need to do is tell Teams where that web page is in this example. So I'm just going to go in and make a quick app right here on the fly and fill in all the information. And I've got a whole blog article on how to do this, so you don't really need to worry too much about the details. Let me put a nice logo that's different than the one I was using before so you can see the difference. And now I will add my tab. So this is going to be the Learning tab. And let me go over and grab the URL. And let's see, entity ID, I'll leave that for a minute. I'm just going to paste that URL in. The entity ID just has to be unique within my app. And now what I need to do is I need to make sure that my user is logged into SharePoint in order for this to work. So I'm going to doctor up the URL. This is using a trick from SharePoint Framework. So as I mentioned, I've got a blog article that I'll point to that explains how to do this. The caveat is that this URL format may change as SharePoint adds richer experiences. So right now, as I mentioned, you kind of lose your navigation when you do this right now, and so they're working on something more interesting. So just be aware you may have to go back and change the URLs. And I'm going to put a couple more in here. So the content URL is the one that's used in the Teams UI. The website URL is just the plain old, if there's a pop-out browser. And now I'm going to go ahead and test this out and distribute this. I'll just install it for myself. And there it is. And the other tabs work as well. So notice that SharePoint's nav is gone, but my SharePoint framework headers are there. Here I'm bringing in a SharePoint list. Formatting would work on the list, etc. So just a lot of things you can build very easily using this technique. You can also pin it. Or maybe what you want to do is, let me uninstall it locally. Maybe what you want to do is publish it out to your whole organization. So to do that, you would go back into the manifest editor and download the manifest file. And you'll actually get a zip file that you can upload here inside of Teams administration. And so I would upload it here, and I'm not going to do it now, but this is where I would do it. And once it's inside of my Teams app catalog, I could actually come in here and apply permissions. So notice that I can allow all apps or specific apps or block all or block specific within 3 different categories: Microsoft apps, third-party apps, and then custom apps are the ones that you upload into your tenant. Setup policies. This is where you can pin the apps. So I can decide if people can upload apps kind of ad hoc and whether they can pin their own apps. And then I can pin apps for the whole organization down there at the bottom. So let's get into bots a little bit more. But what I want to point out about bots just quickly is that there are different kinds of bot experiences, or different best practices around bots, I should say, depending on where the bot is. So if you're in a one-on-one conversation with a bot, you can have a lot of back and forth dialogue, and that works really well. But if you're with a group of people, it can get really confusing because the only way the bot knows you're talking to it is because you have to mention the bot. Otherwise, the bot's going to try to respond to everything you're just trying to say to your teammate. And also the conversations in Teams channels are threaded. And so people have to know to respond to the correct thread. So a lot of back and forth does not work real well inside of a team. So let me show you a couple of examples. I'll show you a little bit more on the conversational type of bot, what that can do. Then I'll show you an adaptive card example, and then I'll show you how to put together a little Q&A maker bot. So just to kind of cover off on this
I worked on a
conversational
project.
bot, suppose I'm not really going to give all the information.
Contoso.
The bot is smart enough to ask me, rather than just give me a dumb error.
The first one.
So I have to disambiguate which project because I didn't
3
uniquely
hours.
tell it. And now it wants to know how long did I work
Last Tuesday.
and when did I deliver the work. And the bot is able to figure all that out. So that's the kind of back and forth dialogue I'm talking about. Now let's go into another example, which is more inside of a team context. So here we are in a Teams channel. So I have to mention the bot. And so I'm going to do that. And in this case, I'm going to add somebody to my consulting project. And notice that the bot, rather than coming back with a bunch of questions for the details, actually gives me something called an adaptive card, where I can provide almost like a little form here where I can fill this in and put in all the other information that I need and submit that, and bang, there it is. And by doing that, by the way, I'm actually able to inform my team of what just happened. So I've just avoided some email. So let me show you something called a Q&A maker bot. So what you're looking at is just an FAQ page for Office 365. Lots of questions and answers, and the answers are inside these little accordions. So what I want to do now is make this into a bot. So this type of bot can only answer questions. It's really all it can do, but it's still really useful. So I'm going to go into Q&A Maker, which is one of Azure's cognitive services. And I've already set this up, but I'm going to go in and just make a new knowledge base inside of the service. And I'm going to give it a name. And then what I need to do is just give it all those questions and answers. So let me pop back and grab the URL of that FAQ page. Note that I could put more than one URL and pull in the questions from more than one place. I could also upload files like Word and Excel and PDF files with questions and answers. I can also generate some kind of chit-chat back and forth responses to common chit-chat. So I'll do that with the professional personality. And now let me go ahead and generate a knowledge base. So this is doing a bunch of cognitive goodness, and what I get is the actual questions and answers all broken out. They just announced at Build that you'll have rich text editing inside of this experience. Here's an example where there's a bunch of different variations, and there's certainly a lot of tuning to be done on this in a typical case. This is one of those chit-chat messages, so there's a bunch of different questions that will result in the same response there. So I'm just going to go ahead and train this. And now I can test it. So let me ask it one of the questions from that FAQ list. And what is Office 365? And there it is. It comes right back. So now I'm going to publish this, which will make the questions and answers available on the web. And I could call this from any application. But what I want is to generate a bot application for this. So let me go ahead and create a bot. And this will bring me right into the Azure portal where I can fill in this little form and create a bot. So I need to give it a unique name. And drop in, I need to pick various my hosting location, the pricing tier for just the bot channel service, not including the price for hosting the bot itself in Azure, which doesn't have to be in Azure. But I will put it in Azure, and let's go ahead and let that spin up. And now here's my finished bot. So I sped up the video a little bit. I will confess on that. And what I'm going to get back is a bot inside of Azure. And now what I can do is test that out inside of the Azure portal. And you can see that that's working pretty well. So what I need to do now is connect this to Teams by connecting it to the Teams channel. And so that's pretty simple to do. And now what I can do is take the bot's ID number and actually go ahead and use it inside of Teams. So I'll just go over to Settings, grab the app ID, pop over to Teams, and paste that app ID in. And you can see that that works. So I'm going to go back into App Studio, and this time I'm going to create another new app. Same as before, just fill in all these fields. It needs a unique identifier. And now I'm going to go over to the bots area and set up my bot. Now, I could create a new bot right here inside of App Studio, which would actually go and create a bot registration inside of Azure, but I've already done that. So I'm just going to go grab an existing bot and select my bot from a list of existing bots. And I'm going to allow this one to work in personal, team, and group chat. And so that's it. There's my app. And I can test this out. So I'll go ahead and install it, and I'll try it first in personal scope. And I'll try one of the chit chats, and it's working. And again, I can pin that. So just very easy to get started building one of these Q&A bots. So another thing that you can build in Teams is a messaging extension. So this demo is an HR hiring scenario, and we just interviewed a job candidate, and I want to get feedback from my team. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask for feedback right inside the Teams channel, but I can't remember the name of the candidate. So let me go ahead and bring up this messaging extension. So you'll see there's a few of these that you may have already used that are built in. This one here allows me to search for the open positions or to search the different candidates. And I can narrow down the list by typing a few letters. And yep, that's the guy. I'm going to go ahead and drop that into the conversation. So that is a messaging extension. From here, I could actually leave a comment. So this is part of the adaptive card feature. So everybody can just now interact with the card that I sent in and give their feedback. And then if you want to see the feedback, this is another thing you can build is a task module. This is just a little web page, or it could be an adaptive card that pops up in a little modal dialogue like this. So just another cool way that you can extend Teams. So finally, another scenario is notifying people on a team that something important has happened. And to do that, I'm going to use a connector. And I'm going to show the simplest possible connector, which is called an incoming webhook. But you can develop ones that are part of your Teams app that get installed by the user, using the name of the app. But for this really simple one, and this is a kind of a trick you can use if you're just need something on a one-off basis, is you just come in and create an incoming webhook, and you get to give it a name. So it's going to happen inside of this Teams channel only in this case. Like I said, if we built one and put it into our Teams manifest, we could install it into many different channels. So here's my, I'm just going to call it notifications, and it's going to give me back a URL. And this URL has a secret in it. So, you probably want to handle this with a lot of sensitivity because anybody with this URL can send messages into the team. So now suppose you've got some background job, and when it finishes running, you want to let the team know. Well, you would just use that URL to post in a message. So let me do that now. And there we go. There's the message. Or I could even use an adaptive card. So let me just drop the URL in now, and I have an adaptive card here. So I'll point you to some information on adaptive cards later, but this is one that I just had ready to go, and you can see that I can post that directly in to give a little bit richer of a UI for my notification. So now you've seen the major components of Teams applications: tabs, bots, messaging extensions, connectors, and adaptive cards. Keep in mind that there's more than one way to do this. The easiest way is to go to the Teams store and select among the hundreds of great applications that are already there. It's also possible to use a low-code approach. Power Apps and Power Automate do a great job and have rich integration with Microsoft Teams. And there are other low-code options like SharePoint and Q&A Maker for building applications without code. Teams app templates are worth checking out. Didn't really have time to get into them this time, but these are pre-built applications that are posted open source, and you can download them into your own Azure subscription using a very simple process, and then from either run them as is or modify them to your needs. And then there's custom development, where really the sky's the limit. Here are some useful resources. The Teams developer platform. I've actually started working with the Patterns and Practices team, and have put several videos out there along with others from the PNP community. And so I've got two playlists here, or the community really has two playlists, one for full developers and one for low-code developers, and those will continue to grow over time. Andrew Connell built a great lab and learning experience for Microsoft that is in Microsoft Learn. And so that's the link there. That's the Microsoft Learn Teams Dev link. The field visit video, I wrote a whole blog article on that and published the code, so there's a link for that. The whole trick of building your SharePoint apps, building apps out of SharePoint pages is the next one. And then I didn't really have time to get into adaptive cards, but if you're interested, a good place to start is at adaptivecards.io. There's a designer there where you can build an adaptive card and use it directly inside of your application, or use it in an incoming webhook, etc. So thanks very much. I hope this was helpful, and I'll be glad to take your questions on chat, and thanks for attending.
Thank you for being a part of the Galactic Collaboration Summit. Join the community and meet in-person world-class Microsoft and MVP speakers this autumn in Wiesbaden, Frankfurt, Germany, with 15 full-day tutorials and over 150 Microsoft 365 and Azure sessions at the combined European Collaboration Summit and European Cloud Summit from 26 to 28 October 2020. Community rocks.